scripted. When I found that out, I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. But yeah, going back to what James was saying about after everything happens, Cassidy's like, no, I don't want to be with you. I can't. I have my own life. And then, he fucks things up with Stephanie, and she says, I never want to see you again. He doesn't know what to do. And then, so at his job, he's in a really shitty mood. And, the customers or the guests, Ryan, or...
Yeah, you know what? Wes, give me your name badge and your walkie.
That's a little Target joke. James worked for Target too, so he knows what's up with the guests.
Okay.
Yeah, the guests were acting, kind of shitty to him, and he's had enough. And the manager's always kind of heckling him, and he treats him like shit. So then Randy has reaches his boiling point, and he just fucking socks the what is that called? The slice, like the deli meat slicer?
Yeah, the meat slicer.
The blade, he just punches it. Almost like out of like muscle memory, and it obviously cuts him, and he has so many people witness this, and his manager freaks out, and it's like, Randy, what are you doing? We have customers around. And he's like, you little shit, you're going to talk to me the way that you do? You want your fucking cheese, lady? And then he smears his blood all over his face.
Yeah, that was hardcore.
And he just starts going ham, first behind the deli counter, and then he's like, fuck this, I quit. And he walks through the supermarket, destroying everything in his path. And then there's this tiny little scene that's not even a minute, where he's sitting in his van, and he kind of puts pressure on his wound on his hand, and he's like, he says, Rob, and no, it's Randy. It's Randy. So it's almost like that's him jumping back into his persona. And then the next is him on the payphone, and he's like, you know what? This, the next event, fuck it. Like, I'm in. Never mind. And they say something to him on the phone, like, are you sure? And he's like, no, I don't really give a shit. I just want to wrestle. So it's almost like he's like, I'm going to go back to the only place where I feel like I'm wanted, where I have a home, where I feel secure. You know what I mean? Fuck my health, fuck everything. This is what I love. And then that's when the finale happens, and Cassidy or Pam, and she's dancing that night and realizes that she doesn't want to do that anymore either, and basically runs out and quits, and goes to find Randy and tell him to, that she wants to be with him. But then when she finds him, it's almost like Randy's already made up his mind, and he's already, told everybody yes. And he's like, I'm still going to go through with this. And she ends up going to the event and watching for a little while. But I guess she gets so scared that something's going to happen with his heart that she ends up leaving. So towards the end of the match, as we all know, you hear that very faint, and it's great sound design, that faint kind of ringing that's supposed to represent his heart, and you can tell that he's just having a rough time, like to the point where his opponent, whose name escapes me right now, is basically, I'll take the fall for you, don't worry, don't push yourself any longer, Ram. Like, we got you. Takes the fall, tells him to pin him, and he's like, no. Climbs up on the turnbuckle and does maybe what is the final Ram Jam, which is a headbutt finishing move.
He kind of get on top of on the ropes, and he's kind of like basking in like the crowd, the
yes.
cheer of the crowd.
He looks back.
He's just taking it all in, maybe for the last time.
He looks back at to see if Pam is still there, and she's left. behind the curtain. So then he's just like, yeah, I fucked up again. I'm going to go for it. And, and that's when you see that kind of wide shot of him on the turnbuckle and the crowd just roaring. And then he jumps, and that's end credits with the Bruce Springsteen song.
That was a wild ending.
Since we're talking about the ending now, what are your guys' interpretation? Do you think that he died? Do you think that survived? Is it meant to be open-ended?
I definitely think it's meant to be open-ended. But and obviously, you don't want him to die, and that for him to be his final ram jam. But I just, with everything that happens throughout the movie and everything with his daughter going south again, and the Cassidy, not leaving him there and not being there for the match, and him looking at the curtain and she's not there anymore, leads me to believe that was it for him. And going back to that scene when he's talking to her right before he goes to the curtain, that line he says, the only place I get hurt is out there. The world don't give a shit about me. And everything throughout the entire movie, it culminates to that scene. It, leads up to that scene, and that line just fucking guts you as you're watching.
It hits so hard.
This guy's downfall. Yeah, it does. And it was my girlfriend Sandy. It was her first time watching, and she had tears in her eyes. Like, what's he doing? And I'm like, I don't want to obviously give anything away, but it just, it's a heavy one, and that ending is no joke.
Yeah, I think going up to that point where he's getting ready when what is it, Guns N' Roses starts playing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and like that whole argument, or that that whole line and everything that he has with her, and I'm like, man, he's gonna. I'm like out loud, I'm like, he's gonna kill himself. Like, basically, he's prepared to die. I think he's made it up in his mind that, I'm probably gonna die today, but it's gonna be okay because there's gonna be people cheering, and I'm gonna be, I'm going to be on top of the world, at least for a second. And I don't care what happens to me after that. I think he's already he accepted that, and he's prepared to die in that ring. And because he feels like he has nothing left. But man, yeah, that was a rough scene. And I'd like to think that, he landed on his opponent, like you said, I forget his name as well, but he pins him, and he finds he finds Pam, and they ride off into the sunset. That's my positive look on it. But in reality, I'm probably like, oh, he's probably gonna land on him and then just pin him, but be dead as he pins him.
I think Pam not being there was the fact that she loved him and didn't want to watch him.
Yeah, she couldn't watch him die.
Yeah, she was too scared. So that was like an unfortunate kind of miscommunication there, where Randy was like, "Oh, look, like she abandoned me, so might as well go out like immortalized, as the Ram." Like as he said, going back to Ryan. The point that Ryan made, that when he's talking to Pam or Cassidy outside of his van, he's like, the fans are my family. That they are my life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was just like he was scared of anything else.
There's a little a little line when I think his name is isn't it like the Ayatollah or something like that?
Yes.
The wrestler he's fighting. But when it's coming down towards the end, and he sees the Ram, and he sees that he's he's obviously in discomfort and he can't go on. There's a little line that he says. Tells him that what does he say? He says, "You've given them enough."
Yes.
That's right. And he still gets on that turnbuckle, and yeah.
Do you guys do you guys have a favorite scene? Something that stuck with you?
The hardcore, dude. Just the pain and the toll that he takes throughout that scene, and I love how, and it starts with them just mapping out the match, and then it just cuts to it being over, and they're both bloody, and then as he's being stitched up, and the doctor, the medic is working on him, it's flashing back to how he got what he's being fixed up for, and it. Again, going back to what you said, obviously, it's scripted and wrestling, but in the end of the day, like, these wrestlers that are in this game for a while, it takes a humongous toll on their body, and ultimately that match was kind of his death wish, basically.
Yeah. Where you can tell that when he's talking with Necro in the locker room, that Randy's really unsure. Where he's like, what's up with this hardcore stuff? What are we gonna do? And he's like, well, are you okay with a staple gun? And he's like, what do you mean a staple gun? And he's like, yeah, like staple gun. And then he's like, well, does that hurt?
And then the other scene I really like is the small one in the beginning when the kids wake him up from his sleeping in his truck, and he just basically lost his trailer or doesn't have access to it, and you think that he being woken up by those kids, he would be pissed off, but he like runs out and he's like fighting with them and acting out like his persona, and it adds to that little scene, adds a little extra layer of how at heart, I mean, he's a kind person.
It'd have to be probably the end scene, probably my favorite one. I mean, you can see he's just pretty much a defeated person, and that he's willing to risk it all just to please the fans and to kind of give them what they want to see.
Okay, I can respect that. Yeah, mine is a more reserved scene, and you guys are probably going to be surprised by this, but I loved when after Randy has his heart attack, and they tell him like, hey, you need to chill out, and they show him like showering and trying to chill out, and he doesn't really know what to do with himself. He's reading, and then he looks over at his original Nintendo and entertainment system, and then he goes outside and he says, hey Zach, come here, you want to play? And he goes, okay. And they go in and they're playing I think it's called, it's some kind of wrestling, Ram something. I forget the title of the video game, but it's like this little pixelated old school wrestling game, and they just have like this small interaction, and you see like Zach is like, yeah, I just got Call of Duty 4, and he's like, what? Call it Duty 4? No, Call of Duty 4. And you just see like that disconnection, and then Zach is just like, wow, this game is so old. And then so they play a couple matches, and he's like, hey, I gotta go, and he's like, what? And Randy beats him in the game. He's like, I just gave you an ass whooping, you don't want to get some revenge? And he's like, no, I gotta go for dinner or something. And then they say goodbye, and he goes, don't forget to do your push-ups, brother. Very cool scene, especially bonus Swan fact here. That video game was specially created for the movie. It does not exist.
That's cool.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was programmed and I guess our